Sweet. All right, so we're live now. Now we're live on both. We're back, y'all. We're back. Thank you for joining us. It's been a little minute, but we had today. We decided 420 was the day that we were gonna come back and do the damn thing. There is no correlation. That is actually coincidence for anyone. If anyone thought that was intentional, you're muted on.
Well, I didn't say anything. Yeah.
Make sure I'm not muted. Yeah.
Well, for me, there's definitely not. Yeah. Not. I mean, for those that do, more power to you.
Yeah. If you partake in 420, experiences, then go off and be married after the show, because we need you here for this. We need you here for this whole hour.
Some might argue that it actually would help them, but whatever.
They got to be high to get through an hour of Cliff and Sean.
Well, I didn't say that. I'm just saying, like, they actually might want to sit here and watch anybody on Instagram Live for a moment. That's all.
All right. So here's a quick idea of the rundown. We're going to look at the Derek Chauvin murder trial, the Daunte Wright killing by Minneapolis police, which was, I think they said it was 10 miles from where Mr. Floyd was killed, and the FedEx facility shooting in Indianapolis, the Chicago police killing of 13-year-old Adam Toledo, and if we have time, the Nashville school shooting a week ago. And that seems like a whole lot of shootings.
Yes.
We're gonna have to brighten this up with some positive news. Besides the verdict, we're gonna have something to brighten this up towards the end.
Yes, we will. We'll need something positive.
All right. So for those of you, I did not have time to download the video, so I won't get to show the verdict. But for those of you that have been following along, it's about an hour now. It's been about an hour 15, where we got the verdict in the Derek Chauvin murder trial. This is the former Minneapolis police officer who kneeled on the neck of Mr. George Floyd, and for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, ultimately resulting in his death. And my favorite part of the whole reading of the jury verdict was this right here: walking that monster out in handcuffs. And I know you've got a lot. We talked briefly before, and it struck us both just kind of how emotionless Derek Chauvin was while the verdict was being read, and it was kind of par for the course for his demeanor throughout the entire trial. And I just found it very eerie and odd, his lack of remorse and his lack of humanity. And it seemed like humanity that he lacked when dealing with Mr. Floyd was the same lack of humanity, and he just had such evil, it seemed, just looking at him in the courtroom. He would avoid making eye contact by acting like he was taking vigorous notes, and I don't know, if I had just learned that I was going to spend several years in prison, there would be an emotional reaction to this culmination of a 3-week trial. But he really kind of sat there fake stoic, and I just thought it was odd and eerie.
I don't know if I would say it was odd, only because someone that can do that to another person, I don't. He didn't have any remorse, The number of people that tried to stop him, number of people that were called to the scene, he still never let up. And so I feel as if in fact he did care about his actions in that moment, we would have saw him pull back. I'm one of the people I still have not watched the entire video. Yeah.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Any angle, like any of the body worn cameras, any of the teenagers, the girls that filmed it, like the across the street? You haven't seen any of it?
I've only seen I only need to see an image.
So you've only seen this still image of him having the knee on the neck, but not, and that's pretty much after Mr. Floyd expired.
Well, no, like when they first start the video, you know, when you see people, but other than that, I can't do it.
That is okay. You actually would have been a decent juror because they were trying to find people who had been as removed as possible from all of it.
But I mean, okay, but to even say that, even if you don't see the video, I still feel as if like just what happened yesterday, right? During closing, and after closing arguments and what the defense tried to argue in terms of it being an unbiased, you know, that he didn't feel as if his client was able to receive a fair trial because of the biases that people come there with. And so even if I haven't seen the video, I know enough, you know, so I still, and we can talk about that either later or at another time, but I still feel as if we're all human, and this is something that whether you've seen this video, you might have seen other things like it. I mean, you just saw last week a child, a 13-year-old with his hands up, was shot, you know, and then the week before you have Daunte Wright that was also shot, and you had someone with their child in the car with them also shot by police, you know. So it's just, there's all of these different incidents where I feel have added up to that moment where George Floyd was killed. Well, for me, that I cannot go myself through that. Just even talking about it, it just does something. But yeah, and I think, and also I just want to say that here too is that everybody has to know their limits, because I don't think that for me, I can't handle that. Like reliving that, watching those videos, seeing pictures, I don't need to do it. But for some people, it also reminds them of like where we are as a society. You know, this was one thing today, receiving that guilty verdict, but we're still removed from actually having systemic change. So that's why if you've listened to you've been listening to the conversations or just the words from the family members and the attorneys, everyone is still pointing us back to where we are and where we need to be headed in terms of obtaining further justice for not just George Floyd and his family, but for others, in terms of passing bills, laws that are reflective of removing behavior like this from police officers and more.
We got a comment. It says I thought it was a little weird. Essentially, like agreeing that his lack of emotional response was weird, but it just proved his ways. And I completely. I think that. I think his lack of emotion in the courtroom was emblematic of his character and who he is. I think that's accurate. The second part, I'm not sure who Amber is. The reference. I remember when Amber was crying and people were then taking her side. I can remember like Amanda Knox, maybe. I don't know who Amber, a famous case with an Amber.
Maybe they can provide more context, because I don't know who that is either. But yeah, what were some of your thoughts in terms of Botham Jean? They added in the comments, Amber. Do you know?
Oh, that's another shooting. I think. That's the one who killed she walked into the wrong apartment, right? Is that who that is? Walked into the wrong apartment and killed that black man? Because I don't think she got convicted.
In 2018 in North Carolina. In North Carolina, I believe. No, that was I'm thinking about when. No, that's not the same one.
Either way, what'd you ask me?
No, I was just wanting to know, like, what were some of your thoughts just from the last few weeks with this case, like the way it was covered, and How are you feeling now after receiving the verdict?
Just, I'm surprised because this doesn't happen for holding especially white police officers accountable for violence perpetrated against people of color and specifically Black people is an uncommon, really I can't really think of a time when we've seen this. It's just, to even say uncommon to me is not so much a reflection of the reality, because it would imply that it does occur. And I can't, to say that like Michael Slager, who shot Walter Scott in the back 8 times, but I mean, there was a video of him shooting a man in the back. So it's tough to say that if you can't get a conviction there. I can't really think of a time. I mean, the officers who choked Eric Garner. Nothing. Daniel Pantaleo is the officer who choked him to death. I forget the name of the officer who killed Michael Brown in Ferguson. There was there's no conviction there.
Yeah.
The officers who severed the spine of Freddie Gray in DC, there's no conviction there. So I think the expectation for Black people here was, well, not only what excuse is going to be given by members of the jury for acquitting this man, but how is it going to be spun in the media for the acquittal? This idea that we have to have respect for the judicial process. Well, why? Because the judicial process has never operated in a fashion that's meant to keep us safe or support us. And so you asked me how I guess I heard the words and it was almost disbelief. But when you get a decision by a jury after less than technically one full day, because it was only a part of the day yesterday, and really half of the day 10 hours of deliberation, I thought, oh, so there's at least going to be a conviction on the 3rd degree charge. Because to me, there was just a mountain of evidence proving the depraved mind murder. I couldn't see how he could escape. And this is what I talked with my students about. I don't see how he escapes a conviction on the depraved mind murder. What I was worried was, are we going to get that felony? Are we going to get that 2nd degree felony murder? That's what we really wanted, because to me, if the jury convicts on the 2nd degree felony murder charge, what they're saying is, if you violate department policy and you use excessive force when dealing with the public, if a death ensues while you're in the commission of this felonious act, that's murder. And now we finally have a precedential case establishing excessive force that results in a death is felony murder, because we did not have that before. And so I'm proud that the jury exhibited the requisite sophistication necessary to understand that him not following department use of force policy is not just a dereliction, right, or a straying from his duty, but it's actually an unlawful act. And I was very skeptical of jury having that ability. And so it's weird. I feel like I'll have a rush of emotions later on, but because I'm with teenagers, right? When this is all happening, I'm watching, and just really, it was. I think I tweeted finally with a single exclamation point, because I didn't. There wasn't a lot of words. That's how I felt. Finally, I don't consider this justice, because it's George Floyd being alive and George Floyd having the opportunity to speak with a mental health professional if they believed that he was suffering from some mental health crisis. That's justice.
Yeah. And going back to what you said, you were with teenagers. This generation after us, they we have to commend them because in part, you know, that's what everyone's talking about is that had this not been recorded, we wouldn't have, I think that it would have been viewed a lot differently, right? I mean, we've had plenty of footage, like what you mentioned earlier about Walter Scott. We've seen what happened with Freddie Gray. You know, we've had video footage, but there were so many different camera angles. You're able to see like what's happening all around in the environment. And so I know that helped really show an accurate picture of what it looks like, one, to have multiple people standing up and saying that this is wrong.
Yep.
To show the lack of accountability within the police, right? I mean, they said that there were police officers that were there with him, but honestly, more could have been done even by his fellow police officers, you know, that were on duty. So it's just a lot to be said about where we're at with things. And it's sad that this had to be recorded, that someone losing their life like that had to be recorded for the world to see and to be believed. Yeah. That I feel
there's no trial. There's no trial. Well, and I said this to the kids today because people were berating. People had a big problem with the statement that Maxine Waters made, and we can get to that. But we can get to that. Because we don't have a trial, but for the bystander videos, because we know what happens to body-worn camera footage. They either would have destroyed it or it never would have been released, which means there's no public outcry. Right. The only reason we reach this point, because if there's not that bystander video, Chauvin's going to lie, and those other 3 officers are going to lie about what happened.
Right.
Oh, he was wild. He had superhuman strength. He was throwing us around like a rag doll. He was non-compliant. He continued to fight us. He had the handcuffs on, and he was still, it felt like we were dealing with Shaquille O'Neal. That's what they would have said.
Yeah, or footage is lost, altered. And so that's the reason why I'm saying I want people to understand the fact that there was more than one person that recorded that helped. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, so Maxine Waters made a statement. Maxine Waters it comes from the civil rights era, and Maxine Waters says, and I quote, "If we have anything other than a guilty verdict, you need to stay in these streets, you need to be confrontational, and you need to make sure they know you mean business." Where's the problem in that statement? I don't think it's inflammatory to make that statement. I don't think you're inciting anyone to commit an act of violence or to engage in illegal activities. So what I want to understand is they're going to threaten censure against a sitting member of Congress who is fighting for her constituents to have the same level of humanity offered to them by law enforcement that non-constituents of color in her district might receive from law enforcement. I had no problem with the statement. What were your thoughts when you heard the statement and the reaction?
Okay. So I hear that, right, with Maxine. But at the same time, I'm just thinking, I hate giving them anything to try and switch the narrative, take focus off what the issue is. So that was more of my frustration. And I before I get to the race part of that, with her being a Black woman and how before I get to that, I just want to say, when you say that, she's not inciting violence, there is an undertone. I mean, but one can argue. Wait. Okay, but the same thing in terms of like I don't want to equate them, because this is the issue that I had about what they went to the floor with yesterday, the Republican members. They went to the floor and they argued, now the Dems are being hypocritical because we called them out when they had members in their own party that actually were inciting violence. Now so in part it is, there are similarities, right? When you're asking people to when you're asking people to hold the ground, fight for what you believe in, but the difference is that these are people that have also, they've been peaceful for the most part. People have been peaceful. Yep. So it's a little bit different when they're actually out here. And then the difference is that they were asking people to go over here and march on a lie, like fabricating that there was fraud for the election. But okay, whatever. So, and then these are also people that had weapons. Okay. They were going to, there's so many layers to that.
There's no comparisons to January 6th.
Right. And so I just feel like you're trying to censure now a Black female congressional member who's been fighting for her constituents and others, right, for over 20 years in Congress. Mm-hmm. But yet you had no issue with putting in these people who were backing like QAnon and supporting these groups that are actually coming here to kill you. So no one had a problem with that, and yet you made all kinds of noise when we were saying that you should strip Marjorie Taylor Greene of her titles and her roles on these committees. So it's interesting, the things that, which I hope people are paying attention. You need to really understand like what it is that these people stand for, that you put in office, and the things that they get loud about. They're wasting all this energy trying to censure her, and yet where were they when people were asking for COVID relief?
Well, I'm not even gonna get into the hypocrisy.
I'm not, but I'm just saying.
But I got some breaking news here.
Is it really breaking
news?
Is it really breaking?
Cliff Mason II does not have a problem with violence being a response to violence.
Yeah.
I despise these calls for peace as a response to violence. When people are marching in the streets, peacefully protesting, what's the result? More death, more violence from the state. But guess what? There's never a call from police to be peaceful. There's never a call for police to stop using billy clubs on people, sicking dogs on people in 2020. There's never a call from state-sanctioned violence to cease. So why would I give a damn if somebody wants to loot or riot? Or throw fireworks, or throw M80s, or whatever. I have no breaking news. You might think I'm a terrible person. My school might not sanction this quote, and that's fine because this is on my time. I don't have a problem with violence being the response to state-sanctioned violence, because peaceful protest has not ended the violence. People marched and protested and got their heads knocked. Now, John Lewis is a better man than me, because I would have responded with an AK, right? But these are different people. These are people of God, so they got different values than
you know what? So
you cut my head, you better have a whole bunch of a box full of stitches for what's going to happen to you. So we operate on different. That's why John Lewis is a legend, and not as many people gonna know my name when I leave this earth. But I don't believe in that. We shall overcome. I want justice right now, damn it, or I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna take it. So don't talk to me about peace. Talk to me about stopping police from using a taser. Like we can jump to the next.
So the one thing I will say though is what you're saying is real, and you do. I think that you need both. You do need both, right? You need the
What's
ones who are going to pay.
What's protest going to do? I think I'm done protesting. What's protest going to do? It's not going to change how they vote in Congress. It's not going to change gerrymandered districts. What's it going to change?
So you're saying no one should take to the streets?
They can. I'm not. I'm taking it back.
Okay. And by which means?
Whatever's necessary.
Okay. Now that we have that out, thank you.
Why you trying to get me on the record? I feel like you working.
No,
I'm not. You sound like the feds right now.
I mean, you already said that it's already out here in terms of like.
You sound like the feds right now.
No, but the point that I want to make is that yes, everyone will do what they have to do in order to show up, but there will be people that have a more peaceful approach than others. And so I'm not saying that she was wrong in what she said. All I'm saying is that there will be some that maybe take it as the undertone of, okay, I can take matters into my own hands. I don't believe that's what she was saying, but at the same time,
but if she was, I'd be fine.
Yeah, if she was, again, last year, the way that some people responded, it might have been more violent. They might have been breaking stuff. But at the end of the day, we're talking about hundreds of years of people not receiving any justice. Yeah. Yep. So I'm also not really here to argue what tactics are used, because apparently it woke folks up.
Hey,
they got their attention.
You sound like you're coming around.
So
you might be throwing a Molotov cocktail or two.
Okay, I didn't say I was doing all that, but I'm here for the streets. Okay, so if you guys want to march, you want to go and knock on doors, you just call me. I'm here for organizing. But go ahead.
All right, so I just want before we jump to this, let me folks that just came in, joined us on Facebook and YouTube. My favorite part of the Chauvin verdict being read today was when they marched his ass out of there in handcuffs. You can't see it on IG, but it's the image of him handcuffed behind his back, being escorted out by a sheriff deputy, and there's been no greater sight this past week. All right, so we saw 10 miles away from where George Floyd was murdered. We can use the term now because we have a conviction where George Floyd was murdered. This young, 22 years old only, 20 years old, Daunte Wright.
I thought he was 19. Either way, he's still young.
Young. This young man was stopped for, I think they believed that his tags were expired on his car. So it's a routine traffic stop. How it escalates to the officers feeling the need. If you see him, he's not a large person. Daunte Wright's about 105 pounds soaking wet. He looked like he's about 14 years old. They were going to tase him because he was non-compliant. I mean, again, he's 105 pounds. So what's he going to do? And you have a 26-year veteran in Kim Potter in the Minneapolis police. 26 year. And on IG, you can't see these images, but it's the mugshot for Kim Potter. She's been on the force for 26 years. She's a training officer, so she trains other officers, and she's the former president of the police union. So this is not the background, right? This is not the resume of a rookie. This is not the resume of someone that should be acting on capricious whims and makes poor decisions. We're talking about a veteran of the force who knows precisely what she is doing. And so this accidental discharge, or this, not even accidental discharges in the defense, it was a mistake. She assumed that her fully loaded Glock 17 was a 2-ounce taser. If anyone's held a loaded handgun, it does not feel like a taser.
Mm-hmm.
A fully loaded Glock 17 is heavier than this can of LaCroix. No, we're not sponsored by them. It's just what I'm drinking. Heavier than a full can of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 3.1 pounds. A taser's 2.5 ounces. So it's just I don't know how much we talk about adrenaline, right? In the Chauvin trial, his defense attorney Nelson tried to use adrenaline as an excuse. It's like, well, how much adrenaline does she need to not know the difference between a loaded Glock 17, which is a 9mm chambered handgun, from a taser? There's no excuse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
An accident is not an excuse. That's not a defense, right? I mean, I think Shannon might still be on here. We got an actual attorney in our midst. To my knowledge, accident is not an excuse to murder.
Mm-hmm. I mean, back to what you said. It escalated so fast, and for someone who has been on the police force for so long, I would not have expected. You know what? I'm not even going to say I would not have expected it. It should have gone differently. And the fact that she also trains other police officers.
Yeah.
It just goes back to the root of all of this, is that oversight clearly is not working. It's not.
Flat out executed, Daunte. I hope they upgrade her charges. Yeah, I can't say that I disagree with that statement.
I mean, that's what, in parts, like, that's what's troubling, because this is someone who's more of a senior member of the force. And then in light of everything that has occurred in your own community across the country in this past year, you would think that they would take a moment, because that's what it's what they've been all talking about, So I have lots of questions in terms of what really has taken place within police departments in this past year. But I know that we're not going to get the answers that we would like until there's a larger bill or something that's passed mandating changes.
So you gotta read that comment.
Yeah. So this comment, it says, it's just so frustrating that an officer can mess up and is never held accountable. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a much more professional way of putting it than my video I posted a few months ago. I said that law enforcement, that's the only profession where you can F up. I believe it. You can F up and just have the support of your union, and you're going to be taken care of. That doesn't happen anywhere else.
Wholeheartedly.
We can just F up every day.
Remember last summer is it last summer in Philadelphia, when they were outside, and there was a man that they were out there protesting, or maybe it was in New York.
Pushed the old man to the ground?
When he pushed the old man to the ground, and then you had
that was up in Buffalo.
In Buffalo, in New York, and the number of police officers that stood up behind him.
Yep.
Yeah, and then
no conviction there either. Remember?
Okay. Yes.
They can do anything, and that was against a white man.
Yep.
Clearly, that dude didn't have any money, because if he had money, they would have came after him, and there would have been a settlement.
But to this person's comment, though, it's like, they're never held accountable. I mean, again, today is the outlier. I just want to point that out. It is an outlier.
It is.
And it doesn't happen often. But
so I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that today's verdict, while today being anomalistic, is going to set a new trend or establish a whole new way for officers to be held accountable? That it's this this felony murder is the way that you can get these officers. If they're using excessive force, that's assault. If a death ensues, now we can get some justice.
So
I don't even use the term justice, but now we can have some accountability.
Let's say accountability. I know. I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that this shined a light on the issue.
Yep.
But this is not, I hate to say it, but it's real. I don't think that this is going to change anything within police departments until there are mandates on a national and state level.
Yep.
That's what it takes, because yes, individually they can say that they'll fire someone, but again, firing someone and then allowing them to move to another district and then also obtain the opportunity to like go and continue policing and then harming other people. We've seen this cycle. So until they actually create new mandates, they have a database, where they're tracking these things. We're not just beholden to trusting body cams, because we see we see where that's gotten us. This has been something this has gone on for so long, more than 4 decades, more than 5 decades. So you can watch a number of documentaries and see.
Yep.
There's a number of documentaries. It's sad, but the reality is this has plagued this country for so long, to the point where I hate seeing that it just becomes like a moment and then it's repeated again, because I listened to the presser and they were just saying that, okay, and then in a few weeks we'll be here talking about Pam Turner, and then you want us to march again. And I definitely want a justice, and I want accountability for for these people who lost their lives. But we need more than that. We need more than just showing up in the streets. Like there needs to be more.
More. Well, now you sound like me. I mean, I want some radical reform, and I think radical reform requires some radical individuals willing to put their careers on the line, because you have to have social and political capital to get things done. And the question is, how willing are you to risk your longevity in your current position in the government? Yeah. And that's really the only way that some of these things are going to change. I was gonna say I have 3 proposals. Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say? Oh,
no. I just wanted to add something I did not say, but it's also taking into consideration things that we probably have never imagined, right? So I understand that we've been this society that's had police. We really need to take a look at the Breathe Act and some of the things that are being proposed there in terms of having community advocates rather than having police show up for incidents where it really might just be something where you can have a social worker and someone within the community that works with the social workers show up to intervene, rather than having police show up, they escalate the situation, then someone is killed, and all of that could have been prevented by just having.
And we just learned.
Yeah.
And we just learned that from, I think it was the Oath Keepers, the police were training a lot of these insurrectionists. They received police training. I mean, so anyone that was watching the People versus the Klan, there was a 2-hour special last Sunday, and then a 2-hour special the Sunday before that. And did you not watch any of it?
Did you text me about that?
Oh, well, okay. Well, the People versus the Klan, so it's 4-hour special. It was good. And it was Beulah May Donald, who was fighting to get justice for her son, who was lynched in Alabama. And the idea that we've had police in our society, you made me think of that, because a lot of folks don't understand like really the kind of the origin story of police in this country. They started off as kind of slave catching patrols. And so to ignore that history of the police and to understand, yeah, they went from, once the Klan was not dismantled, because the Klan still exists today, but once the Klan had struggled financially as a result of some legal battles, they decided to find their way into police departments. And so they took those hateful views into police, and that's just the way that it's been. So just like they free formerly enslaved people with the 13th, there's a caveat in there that says, well, except for people convicted of crime, and so that they can just re-enslave people. The same is true with the Klan. These supremacists just found new avenues to torture and maim people. They just had the badge, so the backing of the state behind them. And so I think today, I'm not very optimistic that the result of this conviction will mean that we're going to stop seeing police treat us differently, because Adam Toledo would still be alive. The officer, I'm just going to skip to Toledo. If you're not familiar, you got a 13-year-old boy, this cute kid. I mean, yeah, he may have been involved in gangs. I don't give a damn. He may have been involved in some criminal enterprises. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Right. So guess what that means? You charge him with a crime. You arrest him and you charge him with a crime. You don't just shoot him when he's complying with every demand you're giving. Anyone that's watched the video, the officer says, throw the gun. What does he do? He tosses the gun under the fence. Officer says, put your hands in the air. What does he do? He throws his hands in the air. Officer says, turn around. What does he do? He turns around and he's shot in the chest. Yeah. And he's shot in the chest. So what are we, do you think if Adam Toledo was blonde and blue-eyed, that the officer would just shoot and assume that their claim is a weapon in his hand? We can't say that race is not a factor here. Yeah. We cannot continue to ignore the pervasive nature of race in all of these police encounters. We just can't. No. And the reason we can't is because we see video after video after video of white people that are violent and hostile, engaging with police, and there is no lethal force applied. Right. There's not even reasonable force applied. Right. They're so deferential to these white criminals and just so quick to use lethal force if the person has some melanin or is in a neighborhood that might make you a little jumpier. If you're jumpy working in a neighborhood, you're probably not from that community, so you shouldn't be policing that community.
But if you're jumpy to begin with, you shouldn't be policing.
Well,
I mean, no. If you were out on the field, right? So it's like, this is your job. Why? Well, you're about to read a comment.
Yeah, sorry. It's a longer one I was trying to.
Yeah. And we only have 10 minutes. Just
okay. It seems from all the interviews on the street that the amazing community and organizers know that nothing will change unless there's a systemic change. Yes. Politicians don't drive change. They fear it. And this is true. Politicians want stability in their positions. And this is what I'm saying.
They sure do.
Take the courage to lose that job.
Yes. And also, it will take us getting these people out of here. So we've talked about this on other segments, and I'm sure Cliff and I will definitely get into it in the next few months as election season is upon us. But yeah, y'all, we got to get these people out of here that are not really talking about systemic change. You know, they become very comfortable. You had Nancy Pelosi saying something so egregious earlier, thanking George Floyd for sacrificing his life.
What? That man wasn't trying to be a martyr? What's she talking about?
Yeah. So
when did she say that?
During a press statement earlier.
Man, come on, man. What's wrong with these people? She gotta go. What said she gotta go?
Yeah. So, you know, it's people like that. There's a number of other people, but the point I'm trying to make is that you can't allow individuals to be there and not really be willing to do the work, right? Like they're still trying to keep us confined within certain structures that have not worked or certain systems. So I agree with you. It's not going to come just with having politicians.
That is.
Yeah. And I just want to point out too, I wrote for congressional members, so they can always not take the talking points. They can always pivot. So why you would read that and think that
she's
that
the
was
House?
okay?
She is the
House Speaker
of the House of Representatives. She should have the best of the best. She need to have a Cliff Mason telling her what she can and can't say. And she went off and said some silly like that.
I'm like, how many people saw this? Yeah, I mean, even if it did come out wrong, I'm just like, but
I don't think a clown on Fox News would say some ish like that. That was worse than Fox. I said it.
They would say some stuff like that.
I mean, come on. I'm thankful that he sacrificed him. What? How dumb does she sound?
Yeah, I can't pull it up on my phone because we're using. Yeah, move on to nothing else.
Not Nashville. Excuse me. Indianapolis. So we live in a country that has a very American, unique experience every week or so. I mean, I don't think every week is hyperbole. We deal with a mass shooting of some sort, whether it be 3 fatalities, or if it took them out Las Vegas, what did it get into the 50s? 52? Dozens of fatalities. The Orlando, the Pulse nightclub shooting. And to say that it happens too often is played out, because we know that. What I'm going to say is, as a person who's lost people to gun violence, there's really no excuse other than cowardice and craven, selfish, political ambition behind the lack of response from elected officials. Because if the response to these killings and shootings is always the same 3 words, what 3 words?
Prayers and condolences. Yeah, prayers and condolences.
If it's always thoughts and prayers, then you don't care. You're not praying. They're not in your thoughts. Because you know what you could do? You could pick up a damn pen and you can go write a daggone law, and it would pass. If Ted Cruz walked into Nancy Pelosi's office and said, let's do this. 2 people that could not be further on the political spectrum, but 2 people that are somewhat leaders in their parties from different chambers of the people's body.
Absolutely.
Let's hash this out. Let's pass universal background checks. What do we need to do? Let's limit magazine capacity. What do we need to do? Let's extend the waiting period from gun purchase. What do we need to do? Let's close the gun show loophole. What do we need to do?
Yeah. But the problem...
And again, for folks watching, one of the hosts here is a gun owner. I enjoy going to the range. I also follow the rules. If I had a child in the home, I would more than likely have a safe that they could not access. To me, these are common sense solutions.
Yeah. Which I don't understand if they're, again, these are people that we've elected in the we've elected them to represent us. They're adults. They should be able to have these conversations. And you're right. Ted Cruz is by far like someone on the complete opposite
far
spectrum.
Right.
Yeah, far right. But what it will take is someone from the far right meeting with Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, I'm using her because
Chris Coons or Chuck Schumer,
or AOC. I'm just saying, but
not
they
AOC.
would need to meet. But what I'm saying, the reason why I'm not using her is because she doesn't have the power as Speaker of the House. So it needs to be somebody meeting with the Speaker, and then rightfully, she's been there longer. She has the pull, to get it, get everyone together. But it needs to be to the point where they have this conversation. Yeah. And also, every time that there's a gun shooting, I need I need people to stop making it about themselves. You know, these are people that, because all of a sudden, as soon as there's a shooting, everyone's just, no, you're not taking my guns away. You make this about yourself, and it's just, why are we not looking at the larger issue?
Well, they think the larger issue is mental health, and it's not.
And it's
Every
not
country has people that suffer from mental health.
Right.
That suffer from mental health.
Every country. Right. And it's not always going to be that. But my problem is that we need to get off of someone's trying to take something from me, because that's not what this is. I'm
gonna make another bold statement on this show today. Mm-hmm. You know what the hell else we need to talk about when it comes to these shootings? You know who that is?
Is that the one that just?
That's the FedEx shooter.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Okay.
Shot himself. You know what we need to talk about? Whiteness.
Whiteness, yes. But that's what I'm saying in terms of making
the
it
Orlando
about
Pulse
myself.
nightclub shooting is the only exception. That was the only non-white mass shooter. But you talk about Las Vegas. You talk about with the Sikh temple up in Wisconsin. You talk about
Aurora,
Nashville, Aurora, Tucson, Arizona, Colorado Spring. I mean, has there been, with the exception of
today,
the shooter in I can't remember his name today. There's a shooting today?
Yeah, there was a shooting.
Come on. What? Are you serious?
Yes.
Where?
This morning in New York, in Long Island. An employee, he went into
you can't even have
his
guns
former workplace. Well, I mean, he went there and he shot two people died.
And this is a non-white assailant?
He's black.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we need to
talk about that.
And the response is always, well, we have gun laws, but the criminals don't follow the gun laws. Well, that's not entirely true, because some of these people who have committed these acts, actually, there are laws that would have restricted that. Because like states that don't have a 30-day waiting period, a cooling off period would have stopped them.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just wrote me about time. Are you saying that it's you gotta go?
Yes.
Yes. Why you set up the 1 minute? You could have just told me.
Okay. Well, I told you when it was 10 minutes, but you know.
That was my quick.
I just want you guys to know Cliff is a hot commodity over here, because he's getting ready to go do another recording.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I think no. He's got a full deck today. He's got like 3 people.
Oh, okay. My bad.
No,
I was like,
I'm breaking down the studio here.
I was keeping time for us, so I don't know what time is looking like. Okay, so maybe we have a few more minutes.
We were a little late, so we can give him an extra 2 minutes.
Okay.
To finish with the FedEx. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So keep going. My bad.
No, I don't even know where I was, but this hits home to me because, I mean, I've lost 2 teammates and a family member to guns. I've had another teammate who's been like paralyzed, but yeah, I mean, and I think I have a little credibility on this issue because I'm a gun owner. And so it's not just, oh, that's the liberal that just wants to take our guns. So I want to take my own. What are you talking about? You sound dumb. I want you to take my guns too? No. So I think, like, to your point, you're saying stop making it about you. I think if people can separate their odd fascination. I don't have like a fascination. It's a cool like hobby for me. But I think if you can separate, to your point, this idea that there's some infringement on your liberty.
Yes.
Separate that from the reality that there are tens of thousands of people who should not be owning these weapons of mass destruction, which I think they should be considered. As we've seen, they have this. They can carry the same destructive properties as a bomb. So the idea that they can't be regulated is a farce, because the most conservative justice that ever lived, Antonin Scalia, wrote a very thorough opinion in the DC versus Heller case and explained that, yeah, while a municipality can't outright ban gun ownership, they can certainly regulate them. And so I think we need to use Justice Scalia's words to motivate some of these Republicans to get on board and support some of these regulations. And I'm not talking gun ban, gun buybacks. I'm talking a longer waiting period. I'm fine with a 60-day waiting period. It sucks. You want to buy something, you want to go use it. It sucks. But you know what? If somebody's struggling with something mentally and they think that that's their last resort, and a lot of gun violence is self-inflicted. And we don't talk often about people killing themselves. Like we got mass shootings and we have suicide. And we have mass shootings that lead to suicide. So I think that there are some laws that I think that there can be a mental battery assessment. I think you should have to go before maybe a licensed therapist. And you shouldn't cost you a lot, but so that they can do an assessment. Maybe there's some underlying issues there. It's like, ooh, you would probably be in a category of folks that would be more susceptible to lashing out if something were to go wrong in your life. We all suffer from depression at various points in our life. We all suffer from anxiety at various points in our life. I know I'm going long, but I just think that I think a lot about these things when it comes to what are ways that we can reduce gun violence, and the idea that it's not possible and that we just have this defeatist attitude is unacceptable to me, because we've all visited I can't say that. Many of us have visited other countries where this is not a pervasive issue. Officers are not walking around armed.
No.
What? An unarmed officer? It's like, yeah, you can do that when you have a citizenry that uses some damn sense and recognizes and appreciates the humanity of their fellow person.
Okay, that part.
And I don't think we appreciate and respect and understand just how beauty life is at times. And we make decisions that can hurt folks. And I'm about to get off here before I get emotional. I think that something can be done about guns, and we just haven't had enough motivation to do it.
Well, in the coming weeks, I know that they will be holding the whole other hearing, the whole hearings in the hopes
Kim
of.
Potter?
I'm just saying like about gun violence. Gun violence. Yeah.
Nothing will get passed. You heard it here first. I'm more excited. I think right now, I would say while we have Biden in office, it would be nice to see some police reform. And we should do that for the next episode. We should both bring in like 5 or 6 police reform measures that we would like to see adopted in a bill, like from ending qualified immunity to a requirement that you have to live within a certain proximity of a district to be a police officer in that district.
I agree. Yeah, because, so I know that we talked a little bit about what we felt today meant, and I do want to take a moment to appreciate receiving a guilty verdict, but it is hard for me not to think about the larger picture. So I've already jumped into action mode in terms of thinking like, okay, so what needs to happen next, right? Because I don't want to be that person that's so excited about this moment, and then tomorrow or this weekend, we see another shooting and someone else doesn't receive the same, they don't receive the same attention. They will not have the same investigation or outcry for their family member who was unjustly killed by law enforcement. And so I'm thinking about that, and I welcome that in terms of coming back next week, because what I do believe is hearing today how many people are pushing for the George Floyd Act. I know that we need to go a lot further than that.
I've got a plea before we head out of here. I got a plea to everyone still with us, and thank you for those still with us. If you see someone pulled over, especially if it's a person of color, if you have the time, if you're not rushing off somewhere, please just pull over, maybe across the street, and just watch. And if you see something, maybe start recording, maybe call the police, because those young ladies, I think, are the only reason that we got to where we got today, because they decided to stop and record, as opposed to just seeing it and shrugging their shoulders and going on. I know I pulled over the other night. Somebody was pulled over, and it was a white dude, but I was like, you know what? It's got these 2 cars. This is not a large person. I don't know why you have 2 cars, but you never know. And he ended up driving away. They saw me, and I don't know if that was a factor. I'm not going to assume that it was, but they saw me, and he ended up. They wrote something. They just let him drive away. But it was like, you just never know. So
yeah,
until we see dramatic shifts in police, we're gonna have to continue to police the police.
I agree. And on that note, we will see you guys next week.
All right. Thank you for joining.